Hello, my name is Caleb Osterling, and today I'm going to be going over a little bit about how I do color balancing and color correction inside of Premiere, and my favorite tool to use, which is the RGB Parade. Now, what the RGB Parade is it's a very visual way of looking at the red, green, and blue color channels. I guess to explain what we're looking at is I'm actually going to turn on my waveform YC and turn off my RGB Parade. Okay, so as you see, this looks kind of like what we were just looking at. It's just this is all one color versus the RGB Parade, which was red, green, and blue. And that's because of the same thing. The RGB Parade is 3 separate waveforms, one for each color channel. And so I just want to use this to explain kind of how to read a waveform before I pop back over to the RGB Parades. From left to right, all these values correlate with the left to right in your image. Top to bottom, though, is brightness and darkness. So everything on your left of your screen represents everything on the left of the image, and everything on the right of the waveform represents everything on the right of your image. And so if we look over here at this image, we have this white piece of paper is our brightest point on the left. So if we look over here on the waveform, we see this little glob. This is the highest glob, which means it's the brightest point, and it's on the left. So this is our piece of paper. And as I kind of slide this around, you can see how things are changing. You see there's all these little squigglies over here are moving right along with the hand. So as the camera's kind of moving, as you see the hand moving off towards the right, you see those squiggles moving off towards the right. In fact, right here, these spots here actually kind of look like fingers as those are moving. So that's kind of interesting. But top to bottom on this image has nothing to do with top to bottom on the waveform. Okay, so it's a little bit weird, but you kind of get used to it. This is a good example again because we also have this black lens cap right here, and that, because it's all darker tones, you're going to see represented by these darker dips down over here. And the idea is anything white should be up at 100 and anything black should be down at 0. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up my RGB Parade, and what we're going to be looking at is basically 3 waveforms, but each one is a different color channel individually. Now, the reason we'd want to look at this is because this can tell you a lot of very interesting information. Anything that is white or black or gray are always going to have equal values of red, green, and blue. So in this image, it looks like this piece of paper is white, but according to the waveforms, the piece of paper is actually more blue than anything. And that's because the blue glob that represents the piece of paper is higher than the green and the red ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that by going over to our Lumetri curves. I'm going to grab red, and I'm going to drag my red highs over to 100. Let's see, I probably went too far because this is very laggy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust green and blue to be even with it. And the reason why I love using these curves is because all I really have to focus on is the whites and the blacks, and I'm automatically also adjusting the contrast at the same time. So by the time I get done with this, I'm going to have a much nicer contrasted image. All right, and now we are also going to adjust the black. So this lens cap over here is supposed to be black, and I can see the darkest part of this is represented by these little points down here, and you can see they're pretty close, but they're not 100%. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go over into my red channel. I'm going to bring that point down to 0, and watch as I bring this down. You can see in the parade the red waveform is lowering. Also, the entirety of the red waveform is spreading out, and it's giving us, again, that nice contrast. All right, it's down there. We're gonna grab green. We're gonna do the same thing. And most of the time when you do this, when you fix all these spots, it's also going to be fixing things like your skin tones and stuff. So here we go. So I've fixed this piece of paper and I've fixed these lens caps. And now we're going to turn off the effect so we can see what it was before. And as you can see, when we turn it back on, a lot more color comes into it, a lot more saturation, and a lot more contrast. It just looks nicer. And that's basically how I would correct the image. If there are other grays and stuff, like I guess this whole glob over here is gray. It's a little dark, so I imagine that's down here. Let's go ahead and assume this is supposed to be gray. The reds and the greens and the blues are not all even here, so I'm going to go ahead and start adjusting that. I always do the high point and the low point first, and then I'll hit things in the middle. It's not going to affect at all what I had done with my paper or my lens cap. Okay, so there we go, we've adjusted that now. Let's go ahead and take a look again. Yep, and as you can see, that looks like a nice, well-balanced image. The skin tone is now correct. The paper is white and the lens cap is black, and there's a lot more contrast and a lot more saturation. So I can move on to the next shot. Again, this is color correction. This is not color grading. So I'm not doing anything creative here. I'm just trying to make the image look balanced. And this is a really good way to keep your image balanced from shot to shot. There's a different scope that can also tell you if something's white or if skin tones are correct, and that's called the vector scope. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Oh, dinner's almost ready. Oh, nice. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. It's the vector scope, YUV, and that's this guy right here. Anything in the middle is less saturated stuff, and anything out here is more saturated stuff. And this line right here is your skin tone line. So no matter what the person's ethnicity is, their flesh is always going to be on this skin tone line. Again, if it's in the middle, that means it's less saturated. So like white should be in the middle, black should be in the middle. So let's take a look. I'm going to go to my opacity. I'm going to create a little mask over here on this white piece of paper. What is going on? There we go. Okay, I'm not sure if you saw that, all those crazy boxes. Oh, look at that. You know, it's pretty much right in the middle. As you can see, we're a little off up here, just a little bit off. So if I wanted to, I can adjust those. I'm not going to right now, but my red needs to come up just a little bit. And you can see that here. You can see the this little dot is slightly further in this blue triangle than it is in the middle, as this blue spot over here is a little bit higher than the red and the green one. So that's how that works. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this mask, and I'm going to create another mask. I'm going to do it around the hand over here so we can see some skin tones. Here it is, right on the skin tone line. And in our parade, we see red is a little bit above green, is a little bit above blue, and that's how skin tones should look. So there. So here we're going to look at this shot of this dress, and as you can tell, everything's already kind of bluish looking. This whole ceiling I know is supposed to be white, actually more like a light gray. It wouldn't be completely white. So this part of the ceiling I can recognize as these globs over here. And as you can tell, there's a little bit, it looks a little bit greenish blue, and you can see that here's the green is a little bit higher than the blues, way higher than the red. So let's pop into our red channel. I'm going to bring these all up to, I think a little bit over 90 is where I want them to go. Anyways, I'm going to bring my red channel up, and I'm going to adjust everything to the white roof. So I'm going to put it there. So here's what we're looking at, this little shark fin. I'm going to bring this green shark fin up to match the red one, and this blue one to match the green one. So let's bring up the green. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down, I see there's a lot of just dark spots. So I'm going to bring down the red, the green, the blue, all the way down to the 0 mark, the shadow area. So let's go ahead and look at the before. All right, and after. And as you can see, the whole image looks a lot better. It looks like there's a lot more saturation, it looks like there's a lot more contrast. Everything's kind of popping, and the dress already looks more white. So there you go. And again, this is a correction, not a grade. Now what's cool though is if I wanted to go ahead and start messing with the brightness a little bit, the red, the green, the blue are all set. So I can now take this white point and I can start kind of adjusting, or just, the overall master, and start, bringing different looks. If I want like more saturate or contrast for some reason, I want it to look, I don't know, let's just see. If I want it to pop, do something like this. Cool, I can do that, but I'm not affecting any of that color work that I just did, and if I make any mistakes, I can always just double click and it goes back to where it was. So there. All right, let's do one more. Okay, maybe we'll do two more. As you can see, the majority of the shot is this white dress, and yet these big clumps that should be the white dress are not in the same spots. Green is about where it should be, so I'm not going to touch green. I'm going to bring up red. I'm going to bring up blue. So let's grab the red channel, and I'm going to slide this up until these all touch the top and match with green. And let's grab blue and bring that up. Oh, that's way too far. There it goes. It's coming back. All right, sorry, it's a little laggy. I think that looks pretty good. And now we have this is kind of like our dark spot. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bring down red just a little bit till it's just touching that 0 line. So it's already almost there. I'm gonna bring it down. Green, I'm gonna do the same. These tiny little adjustments you think aren't doing much, but they are. They are also affecting everything else. You see, as I'm pulling these down and pulling the brights up, it's spreading everything else out nicely. So now let's take a look at before. That's what it was, and after. Now everything looks normal. Now I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna do this one. Okay, so this is cool because we got a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot of white stuff to look at, a lot of black stuff to look at. And really, in a shot like this, what's nice is we just get these big clumps. We don't really need to think too much about it. Basically though, as we see, we got a lot of white areas and they should be touching the top, and they're not. We got a lot of black areas that should be touching the bottom, and they're not. So the goal here is just to spread out these 3 massive blobs all the way across, and we're going to see how it nicely transforms this image. Okay, so as you can see, I've got these globs spread across very nicely. And let's look at what the image looked like before. It looked like that. So it's kind of like faded. It's a little bit more greenish blue than red. And we can see that the green and the blue are higher than the red. And we can also see that there's not much contrast because there's nothing touching the brights or the darks. And then I made some adjustments and spread it all out. And boom, we got a lot more saturation, a lot more contrast going on. And that is just, I guess, the basics of how you use RGB Parade and curves to color correct your footage. I hope you're able to get something good out of this video. If you'd like to see more like this, please consider subscribing and have a wonderful day.